So first speaker, Radha Souza, professor at Westminster Law School. She's a social justice activist, a writer, a critic, and a commentator. Radha is author of What's Wrong with Rights, and she's also co-founder, together with Jonas, of the Court for Intergenerational Climate Crimes. And she's invited today to speak on liberal climate propaganda. So, Radha, floor is yours.
Would you like a standard, or are you comfortable with holding it by hand?
So, thank you very much to Maria and to Jonas, of course. I won't say thanks because he's always there. And so I take him for granted a little bit. And thank you for everyone for coming. And to see all these faces amidst us, it's a welcome change. When I was thinking about what to say today, I had not seen this setup. So I did not imagine that one very important face would not be there with us. And therefore, it's quite fortuitous, maybe this is some kind of telepathy between Jonas and me, that I'm actually going to bring another face into the room, if we can, yeah, so there you see that face, yeah? So this is a missing face, and I promise you we hadn't planned it, we hadn't thought about it. It just happened in that way. Now, I want to start off with this idea of brainwashing. I'm supposed to speak on liberalism and liberal climate propagandas. And this is a meeting where Mao in 1957 went to Moscow, where there were a large number of Chinese students at that time, some 3,000 students. And of course, he spoke to them. And a journalist asked him, journalists do a good job that way. They asked him, are you brainwashed? Because everybody says you are brainwashed. And this is Mao's reply. He says, some foreigners say that our ideological reform is brainwashing. As I see it, they are correct in what they say. It is washing brains. That's what it is. This brain of mine was washed to become what it is. After joining the revolution, it was slowly washed for several decades. What I received before was all bourgeois education and even some feudal education. So you can see how he turns brainwashing upside down. So I want to start my talk by reminding ourselves that the first thing about liberal propagandas is to recognize that we are already brainwashed with it. Yeah? And so therefore the question is, who brainwashed us and how? And that is what is going to be my focal point today. And I'm going to, in my 20 minutes, focus on 5 foundational fictions on which liberalism is based. And all liberal knowledge is, in that sense, based on these 5 fictions. And these are foundational fictions. They are so foundational that we don't even think of it as fiction. We think of it as real. Yeah? And that is why it's important to highlight these. The first fiction, and it's a foundational fiction in liberalism, is that nature and people are 2 distinct things, 2 distinct species, and somehow the human species is different from all the other species, and therefore we are, you can say special, or you can say mea culpa we are all sinners because of the terrible things we are doing. But whether you think of yourself as saint or sinner, we are still different from other species. This is so foundational that much of our debates are founded on this conception of human nature relationships. At the same time as they tell us this, and we have been indoctrinated in believing in this, you have scientific researchers who routinely use mice for their experiments. Yeah? So if it works on a mice, it will work on us, whatever it is, whether it is a medicine or whatever. Last month, or I think a little before, a couple of months ago, anyway, recently, there was a lot of excitement because in Britain at least, and I think this is a global problem, there are a lot of people waiting for kidney transplant. And one scientist found out that you can use a pig's kidney in a human being. And obviously people waiting for kidney transplants were super excited about this. So you have the environmentalists who are very uncomfortable that mice are being tortured because of us. And then you have the kidney people with kidney problems who are super happy that the pig's kidney can be used and maybe I can live for longer. And while we do all this, we are still being told that there is nature and other species are very different, that we are somehow different from the other species. Now, how can this kind of transplantation be even possible if we were some superior or different species? And that then leads to all kinds of dualisms. This nature-people dualism then leads to all kinds of other dualisms, which we don't have time to go into, but you have to trust me when I say it leads to all kinds of dualisms, and a lot of our thinking is based on these dualistic categories. We rarely think of what keeps us together. We always focus on what separates us. Yeah? Whether it is race, culture, nature, environment, law, categories, everything. And so we have come to a stage as a result where when we speak of climate crisis, we talk about all the carbon molecules out there. Yeah, that is, if you look at any climate thing, this is what it is. How much carbon there is in there, how much emissions there are. But who put them there? How did that carbon go up there? And how did it go up suddenly, without in such a short phase of time? Oh no, you can't ask that question. Because remember that nature is different. It has nothing to do with us. And we can either be saints or sinners, depending on what we want to do, but we are still different. And this, I want to emphasize, is a particularly defining characteristic of European modernity, what we call liberalism. It's a defining characteristic because other cultures do not have it. And this is important to recognize. So for example, I come from India, and in India we have this very foundational philosophical concept called all life lives on life. Yeah? Jivo jivasya jivanam. This is a thing that all of us have grown up with. But what did we learn from that? We saw the film a couple of minutes ago. From the fact that all life depends on life, the learning, therefore, is, conserve life. That's the first ecological principle. Don't destroy it, because all life depends on it, including ours. So if you include yourself in that, then the ecological principle becomes everything has to live if I have to live. Yeah? And this is what liberalism fundamentally tells you is not true, and the fiction, and therefore the human environment, the human people division becomes a fictional foundation because it's not true. Yeah? And we know it's not true. And all these 5 fictions that I'm going to tell you are common sense. We know this. Like I told you about the mice experiment. We all know this, but still we believe that this is different. Fiction number 2, yeah? is about the state. Yeah. Like the moon has two faces. It has a bright side and it has a dark side. The state also has a bright side, we call it democracy, and it has a dark side, which we call security. No modern state, tell me one modern state that does not have these two faces. Because the modern concept of a modern state is based on this, founded on this dualism. However, what are you told? That your state is always a democracy. Someone else's state is always a dictatorship and an authority. But your state is democracy. Now, you ask any state, they will tell you the same thing. But we also buy into this logic. We start thinking of, oh, this is a democratic state. And so if the state does terrible things, if once in a while we are given a small peep into how it actually functions because Julian Assange or Snowden or somebody has revealed to us, look, actually this is what goes on behind the scene, but we still believe that this is an aberration, that this is somehow a deviance, that somehow somebody has got it wrong. But our states are democratic. The moon has only a bright side. It doesn't have a dark side. And so there is something has gone wrong, but we can fix it. It'll become all right. Yeah, if we can. And all liberal propaganda relies on this bright side and never tells you that there is a dark side that is a necessary foundation of modern statehood. Since it was founded, the bureaucracy, civil service, and the military, they are the backbones that give structure to modern institutions. So this is fiction, and we all know this, by the way. And this is what is great about these fictions. We all know it. We know. Who doesn't know that there is an MI6? Who doesn't know that there is a CIA, there is an NSA? We all know that. But in our everyday, when we analyze things, we don't bring that into focus in the way we think about problems, think about solutions, think about climate, think about people, whatever. Yeah. For example, you take this question of, a climate crisis. I told you about the molecules in the air and, who put them there. When it comes to migration, we say, oh, the problem is that people are moving. The problem is not that people are moving. The problem is people are not able to stay in their homeland. It's not a question of movement, but you see, it's a completely opposite thing. But once you separate people from nature, you can say anything about anything because there is no anchor, there is nothing to ground it to. I'm conscious, I like to be hugged by you, but I don't. I would rather do it after my 5 fictions. The third fiction, number 3, is legal personhood. Yeah? I mean, just think of this. We have a foundational system, yeah, which says that the legal system on which all modern institutions are founded says that there are natural persons and there are legal persons. This is legal personality is the foundation of it. Norbert Wiener, who was a physicist who established the field of cybernetics, because without the cybernetics, there is no post-war society. All our beautiful gadgets, including, all our cell phones and this and that, and everything that we have today comes from what Norbert Wiener established and founded. But he quickly realized that he may have let a genie out of the bottle. And so he wrote a book called God and Golem, yeah, where he said he draws on this Jewish story that a rabbi who created a human being from clay and breathed life into that clay image. And then, of course, that golem then becomes free and a terrifying force in the world. His point was, of course, you need God to keep the golem in control. Yeah? And he was making an ethical point. But the point about legal personality, you can use that analogy to understand legal personality. Here you have a legal creation, which is created by human beings, that you say are different from us. So nature is different from us. A corporate, incorporated entity is also different from us. And they have a life of their own, and they are entitled to all the rights and all the privileges that we as natural persons, that nature has given us, are entitled to. So we are entitled to human rights, but a corporation is also entitled to human rights. We are, and you know, in 2014, there was a US Supreme Court decision on right to free speech, saying corporations also have a right to free speech because they are also persons. Now, we use free speech. Some of us say good things, some of us say bad things, right? I mean, this is human thing. What would a corporation use free speech for? Yeah? Do you want, should cigarette lobby or war in the military-industrial complex? I mean, that is their free speech, right? What has it got to do with us? And yet, if you don't accept this fiction, you cannot function in your everyday language. BARC cannot make a grant application if they don't buy into this legal fiction and say, yes, we are an incorporated legal entity and therefore allowed to make. You cannot negotiate your way around the capitalist world if you don't believe in this fiction. If you don't believe it, also you have to accept it. Yeah? And this is one of the fundamental problems that keeps coming along time and time again. And we know that we don't really buy into it. I mean, do we really believe that Nike or Raytheon or Lockheed Martin is equal to me or you or any of us? We don't. If you ask, do you believe in it? Nobody will. But you can see that it's a fiction that is still so foundational that our societies are based on it. Okay. Now my fourth fiction, number 4, yeah, which is that all problems that we have can be fixed by science and technology. It's this magic thing, you know, like God fixes all problems can be fixed by science and technology. Now, for 500 years, we have tried to do this, but the next technological revolution, which is AI, is going to solve it. Yeah? 500 years we have gone from one technology to another, and one science for another. We had the Industrial Revolution, then we had the Chemical Revolution, then we had, you know, the AI, the Cybernetic Revolution, but the next one is going to solve all our problems. Have faith. Remember, the word faith we never use, but remember how much faith we are asked to have. I don't know if the old popes were alive, they would be envious of the system we have created, because look at how much faith we have. AI is going to solve it. Okay? But what does this do? I mean, why is this fiction, why is it so relevant or important for us to understand? Because this fiction conceals the fact that for any life to exist, regeneration is the foundation of it. Whether it is intergenerational, whether it is species, human species, non-human species, everything requires regeneration. And regeneration means space, time, fallow periods, wastelands. Now, all the dam construction technologies came out of this whole propaganda or this whole idea that water is going waste. And water that goes waste needs to be tapped and used. But that water was doing its own thing. It has its own cycles. It comes back to us in so many ways. You don't see that coming back. Yeah, the rain falls, it goes underground, there is a, it nourishes the soil, etc. It goes back into the sea. There is precipitation. There is a whole water cycle. We all know this. We study it in our school. In our school, we are taught about the hydrocycle. I don't know if you learned it, but we definitely had to study it, the rain cycle and how that comes. And then yet, when it comes to building dams, the rain cycle disappears. See? Because science will solve everything. It will even fix the rain cycle. And therefore, there is no need for regeneration. There is no need for recuperation. There is no need for fallow periods. There is no need to waste anything, because all waste becomes, a thing. And this is something that I particularly want to note, because if you look at science today, all science today, especially after First World War onwards, from the First World War onwards, science is dominated by the military. The first innovation being the airplane, fighter planes. And since then, all technological innovation, I do this in my classroom sometimes. I tell students, tell me one technological innovation that was made for us. Washing machine. Was it made because somebody thought we poor women were washing with that thing? No, it was made because military uniforms had to be washed. Food packaging. Was it because so that we can have a good time? No. So, that was that. My fifth fiction, number 5. My last fiction. And then it's done. You see, Goebbels, he said that good propaganda, and he was a philosopher of propaganda, right? He actually wrote on propaganda. And he said that good propaganda must never lie. Because if you lie, you will be found out. You see? So what good propaganda must do is a good propagandist must make the decision what to tell and what not to tell. So in that lies the secret of good fascist propaganda. You are told the truth, but only what you need to know. And somebody else decides what you need to know and what you need not to know. Now, we have seen how militarism has transformed as a result of this kind of thinking. The whole psychological operations, for example, game theory, for example, all these things are about making what the Revolution in Military Affairs, the RMA, which is the Pentagon, military-industrial complex innovation, says that we need to create war ecologies. But we also need to keep climate ecologies. So then climate ecology itself becomes part of a war ecology. As you can see so if you starve people, happening in Sudan as we speak. So you create an environment where it creates famine. And then you say, but it's not war. People are dying because of famine. But how did the famine happen? Yeah. And so you see that is the thing. And what Mao is trying to say, and that will be my last concluding statement, I will give you a hug, is that you need to be aware. People tell us that you need facts, you need information, you need data, all of these things. But what he's trying to say is, yes, you may need all these things, but you need first and foremost awareness of how you have been brainwashed. Because if you are not aware of this, you won't wash. And just as we take a shower every day, we need to think of the foundational fictions and be aware of the need to wash our brains as much as we wash our bodies. Thank you.